بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أما بعد. Welcome to everyone. We're meeting for the fourth time in our Hajj and Umrah class in person at the masjid and also over our Facebook page, and we are in the chapter of the violations of the Ihram. And we mentioned yesterday there are 9 violations of the Ihram. We mentioned 5 of them yesterday, and the reason why we mentioned 5 of them because those 5 they pretty much have the same expiation. That's why we mentioned them all together, those 5 together. And tonight, inshallah, we will continue on the remainder of the 9 violations of the Ihram. Just to go over the 5 the violations quickly. The first, we say the violations of the Ihram include, number 1, shaving the hair, clipping the nails, wearing sewn fitted clothes, covering the head with something that's actually directly on the head, like hats or anything that touches the head, applying perfumes to your body or to your clothes, and then so that's what we mentioned yesterday. So those 5 violations, if you fall into any of them, the expiation or the kafara that's needed in order to make up for this mistake, you need to either feed 6 poor people or to slaughter or sacrifice a sheep or to fast 3 days or to fast 3 days. Right. So you need to, one of the 3 things, you need to feed 6 poor people or to to fast 3 days or to sacrifice a sheep. Right. So this is for regarding these 5 violations of the Ihram. So now, inshallah, we're talking about the 6th one would be, this is something that it is not very common these days, but it's worth mentioning because the punishment that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned about it in the Quran is very harsh, which is killing game animals while in the state of Ihram. This again may not be of interest to any of us today, but it is worth mentioning because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned an expiation, a special expiation for it. In addition to that, He warned those who knows of this violation, who knows that this is the violation, of coming back to the same sin again. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَنْ عَادَ فَيَنْتَقِمُ اللَّهُ مِنْهُ وَاللَّهُ عَزِيزٌ ذُو انتِقَامٍ. After Allah mentioned that this is a forbidden or a prohibited thing to do in the state of Ihram, and then He mentioned the punishment for it. And then He said after that, then whoever knows about this and about this punishment, and then he returns to do the same thing again, then Allah will take revenge from him. And Allah is Almighty and a taker of revenge. So this is something worth mentioning, of course, killing game animals. So talking about game animals, in brief, it is an animal that it is not an animal that actually not outside those categories of the animals that are can be sacrificed in the as udhiyah. So those animals are any animal other than those ones, like the sheep or the goats and the cows or the camels. So any animals other than those ones are the ones that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warned of hunting. Fishing, that's something also not included in this. Any animal that's actually attacking you, it is not included in this. Like if you have been attacked by an animal and you defended yourself by killing this animal, of course, this is something that you are permissible to do. Anything that's not eatable, anything that you cannot eat, like for example, a dog or a lion or any of these animals, if you killed any of these animals in the state of Ihram, this is also not included in this violation. What's included in this violation is any animal, they call it the animals that are not, that's eatable, and the wild animal that can be hunted. That includes, I would say, the buffaloes, for example, zebras, those animals that are wild animals, are not raised usually by humans. And the only way to get them, ostrich, and ostrich, maybe it's not an animal, it's a bird, but it is something that can be hunted. So that does not include the animals like that we raise in farms, like the cows or the camels and the sheep and all this. So this is forbidden for anyone to hunt while in the state of ihram. Right. Either you are in the boundaries of the haram or outside the boundaries of the haram. For the haram has boundaries. If you have ever been in Mecca, there are signs that actually around the haram that tells you that these are the boundaries of the haram. So, or if you are in the state of ihram, even if you're not in the boundaries of the haram, as long as you enter the state of the ihram, it is prohibited for you to do any kind of hunting of the animals that we have mentioned. Right. Or if you are inside in the boundaries of the haram, even without the state of the ihram. Even if you are not in the state of the haram, but inside the boundaries of the haram, you're also not supposed to do any of this kind of hunting. If you are in the state of the ihram, it is forbidden for you to hunt this kind of animals outside or inside the boundaries of the haram. Right. If you violate this, what are the expiations? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned a few things that you have to do in order to make up for this mistake. First, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned about this in Surah Al-Ma'idah. He mentioned that فَجَزَاءٌ مِثْلُ مَا قَتَلَ مِنَ النَّعِمِ. First, and you have to do one of the three things, either to sacrifice an animal similar to that or at the same category or the same ranking of the animal that you have hunted, to sacrifice an animal similar to it and to donate its meat, or to find out how much the sacrifice would cost and to buy amount of food and to distribute to the poor people, or to fast number of days, and we're going to mention how is that going to work. For example, ostrich. There are a list of animals that have been hunted during the time of the Prophet ﷺ and the time of the companions, and the Messenger of Allah ﷺ did estimate the amount of money that the person should pay in addition in order to make up for this hunting, for this violation of hunting. For example, the Prophet ﷺ, for the amount for someone has hunted an ostrich during the time of the companion, they said that you have to either one of the two things. You have to sacrifice a camel. If you do not sacrifice a camel, then you have to see how much the camel costs and to buy food and to distribute the food to at least 100 poor people. If you do not sacrifice a camel, then for example, you find that the camel costs, for example, $1,000, for example. And in this case, you have to feed 100 people with this $1,000, with the amount of the camel, or the price of the camel that you were to pay to buy the camel. You buy food for 100 poor people and you feed them. And if you do not do that, then you have to fast number of these equal to the number of the poor people that you would have supposed to feed. So you have to fast 100 days. So one of the three things, either to sacrifice a camel or to buy food with the price of the camel that you were going to buy and to feed 100 people. If you do not do that, then you have to fast 100 days. So that goes for the ostrich. For example, there are other animals like the Prophet ﷺ ruled. For example, he mentioned about the Prophet ﷺ mentioned about, for example, the hyena. The hyena was hunted during the time of the Prophet ﷺ. When the Messenger of Allah ﷺ ruled that the person must sacrifice a ram. Must sacrifice a ram. Either one of the three things. Either to sacrifice a ram, or to buy food with the amount of money that he was going to buy the ram for, to buy food and to feed number of poor people. And if not, then he will have to fast number of days equal to the poor people that he would have fed with the price of the ram. So this is the makeup for what? For this violation of hunting. This may not be of an interest to many of us, but it is worth mentioning because of it's a great violation of ihram, that is mentioned clearly in the Quran and also mentioned in the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right. This is where the violation of the hunting. Right. The seventh, so this is the sixth violation. The seventh violation would be doing a marriage contract or being part of any marriage contract. Being part of any marriage contract. According to the majority of the scholars, any marriage contract that's done in the state of the ihram is this form of marriage is invalid. This form of marriage is invalid. To be any part or any of the opponents of the marriage contract, like to be the guardian or to be the person who's getting married. So, for example, if you are just doing the contract, you are in the state of ihram and you are getting married, you just did the contract, you did not consummate the marriage, just did the contract is invalid according to the majority of the scholars. And there's no expiation for that. It is just a violation of the ihram, and the penalty is that the marriage is not valid. However, you can do one thing. The only thing that you can do in this state is to do a revocable, to bring or to take your wife back. If you have divorced your wife, you can take her back during the state of the ihram without touching her, of course. You can declare that she's back to you as your wife. You can do that in the state of ihram. But this is not a marriage contract. This is taking a wife back if she is doing her iddah. You do not have to finish your state of ihram to take her back. You can take her back during the state of the ihram. This is something that you can do in the state of the ihram. But the marriage contract, to begin with, it is prohibited to be done in the state of the ihram. So there are two remaining things here. So we mentioned so far 7 violations. The 2 remaining violations, number 8, which is the biggest violation, in the ihram ever, which is sexual intercourse. This is the biggest violation of the ihram. It will end up invalidating your Hajj. If you do that before the first tahallul. There are 2 stages to finish your ihram. The first stage, first tahallul, and the second stage. If you do the intercourse before the first tahallul, your Hajj is invalid. So that's the first punishment. The second is that you will have to sacrifice a camel. The third is you must do this Hajj again next year. So this is the biggest violation of the Hajj. There is no makeup for this unless you do three things in a row. And by the way, you have to complete the Hajj. So if you do that in your ihram, you will have to finish the Hajj. Do not although your Hajj may be invalid, but you have to complete the Hajj until the end. And knowing that your Hajj is invalid, it doesn't mean that you cut it off and you go back home. You have to complete it until the end. Similar to many of the scholars when they say, when you break your fast in Ramadan, for example, for whatever reason, you will still withhold from eating and drinking until the end of the day, and you still have to make up for this day. Similar to that. So you break you end your Hajj will be invalid, and then you will have to sacrifice a cow. You have to sacrifice a camel, and then you will have to make up for this Hajj the next year. So this is the biggest violation. The last violation is actually sexual intimacy without a complete intercourse. Sexual intimacy without complete intercourse, complete intercourse. If you do any of this intimacy without all of the beginning of the intercourse without having a perfect or complete intercourse, this is a violation. There are 2 things, 2 penalties associated with this, just to mention them in brief. If ejaculation happened, then you have to sacrifice a camel, and your Hajj will be still valid. If there's no ejaculation, then you will have to sacrifice a sheep. So it's a violation. It does not invalidate if there is no intercourse. It's just an intimacy without intercourse. And but it could end up or could lead to ejaculation. If it leads to ejaculation, then you will have to sacrifice a camel. If it does not lead to ejaculation, then you will have to sacrifice a sheep, and your Hajj will be valid still. So these are the 9 violations of the Hajj. But inshallah, we will talk about some of the doing the fidya, or as we mentioned. So the fidya, again, just to go over the fidya, which is the expiation of each of these violations. So we have 5 violations. We have 5 violations that if you do any of them, there is 3 options for you to do: shaving the hair, clipping the nails, wearing sewn-fitted clothes, covering the head with something that sticks on the head, or applying perfumes to the body or to your clothes. Any of these violations, if you fall into them, that you will have to do one of the 3 things: either feed 6 poor people, or to sacrifice a sheep, or to fast 3 days. When should you fast the 3 days, by the way? You fast 3 days, preferably in Hajj. If not fasting in Hajj, then you can fast them outside the Hajj when you go back, when you leave. So if you do any of these 5 violations, if you have fallen into, if you have if you kill a game animal, wild animal that are permissible to eat, And when we say wild animal, that doesn't mean that it will exclude, of course, the cows, the camels, chicken, or anything that's raised in the farm by human, domestic animals that they're usually raised in the farm. It's wild animals that are permissible to eat. Nor should you be part of any of the hunting process. So, for example, if you are in the state of the ihram and you see a hunter going to hunt, and do not direct him that there is a game animal over there, go ahead and hunt. Just do not take part of any of the hunting process. The question arises also here, it's worth mentioning, that if you, for example, someone give you food or meat of an animal that has been hunted by a non-muhrim. For example, if a person not in the state of ihram, he hunted one of those animals, and he's not in the state of ihram, he did not hunt it in the haram, but he hunted somewhere else, and he gave you, and you are in the state of ihram, he gave you some of its meat to eat. It did happen in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. What the Prophet ﷺ did, he asked the companion, did you in any way give him a tip on how to hunt this animal? So did you, for example, told him that, this animal is hiding behind this tree? Did you aid him in any way, one way or another, to hunt this animal? They all said no. Then the Prophet ﷺ allowed them to eat. So do not take part of hunting, of any of the hunting process if you are in the state of the ihram. If you have been offered meat to eat from a hunted animal or for a wild animal that has been hunted, and you did not take part of this hunting process, then in this case you may consume it. So that's violation number 7. And we mentioned that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran a big penalty for this when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that you will have to do a sacrifice of an animal similar to that you have hunted, or to feed number of poor people, or to fast number of days equal to the number of people that you would have fed and you did not feed. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and if you come back to this violation one more time, then Allah will take revenge, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the revenge taker. So this is something worth mentioning, although it may not be of interest of any of us. If you have killed an animal by an accident, this is not form of hunting. If, for example, if you're riding your vehicle or your car and you hit this animal, this is not, of course, this is not hunting, this is an accident. But if you do intentional hunting after knowing the punishment of it, then in this case, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God forbid, He warned of a great punishment. Marriage contract is prohibited, it's forbidden to perform in the state of the ihram. Do not take part of any of the marriage contract. If a marriage contract happened in the state of ihram, this form of marriage, will be invalid, although you can take your divorced wife back in your state of ihram. Sexual intercourse, complete sexual intercourse is the biggest violation. It will end up invalidating your Hajj. And you will have to sacrifice a camel, and you will have to redo your Hajj. Finish your Hajj until the end, sacrifice a camel, and redo your Hajj for the next year. And then finally, the intimacy without intercourse, that will also be a big violation. However, it will not invalidate your Hajj. If it happens, or if ejaculation happens, then you will have to sacrifice a camel and your Hajj is fine. If no ejaculation, then you will have to sacrifice a sheep and your Hajj is also fine. There's something also to be mentioned here before we wrap up tonight. There are some violations that if you do not know that they were violations, maybe no fidya or no expiation is needed. That is wearing sewn fitted clothes and putting on a perfume or covering your hair. If you have done any of these forgetfully or not knowing that this is a violation, there is no fidya needed. Sorry. So 3 things only. So wearing sewn fit. If, for example, you just didn't know that you have your bag that has your clothes, and you just unknowingly, in an act, that you did not pay attention to, you just put on a shirt or you put on something that's sewn fitted clothes on you forgetfully. So then, of course, if you did that forgetfully without an intention, not in a premeditated manner, then there's no fidya needed. The same thing goes for perfuming. The same thing goes for covering your hair, covering your head. If you have a hat and you brought this hat, for example, you wore it not knowing that this is a violation or not intending to do this violation, then there is no fidya needed. If the rest of the violations, it doesn't matter if you did this forgetfully or not. It doesn't actually matter because you will have to do a fidya anyways. So there is something also before we finish about the fidya and how to, some of the technicalities of the fidya. If you do, that goes for the 5 things that you have. Again, we've mentioned 5 things that you have 3 options. We have mentioned shaving the hair, clipping the nails, covering the head, wearing sewn fitted clothes, applying perfumes to the body or your clothes. If you've done any of these violations repeatedly without making fidya, for example, if you kept on shaving your hair 1 time, then there's fidya needed, right? You didn't do the fidya yet, but you did shave the hair again. Then there's fidya needed. Then you did shave the hair again, 3rd time. All what you have to do is to do 1 fidya for the 3 times. All right? Unless you do 2 different kinds of violations. So if you shave your hair and you clip your nails, then 1 fidya is needed for each time. But if you did 1 time, more than once, and then you do 1 fidya for everything, that will be enough. If you do 1 time, a violation of 1 time, and then you do the fidya for it, that's okay. But if you do it again, there's another fidya for it. But if you waited until you do 1 fidya for everything, for 1 type violation, that would be good enough, except for hunting. If you hunt, for example, if you shoot 1 bullet and this bullet killed 2 animals, you're gonna have to do 2 fidyas for the 2 animals. The hunting is really something unforgiving in the ihram. Sorry. We're gonna, inshallah, with this, also we're gonna, about the shaving the hair thing, if you're combing your hair, some hair fell off, that will not count as shaving the hair, and inshallah, that will be forgiven. We have 1 question.
Yeah, are you allowed to wear sunblock lotion?
If it's not scented, make sure it's not scented. If it's just lotion not scented, that's fine. Anything that you have not scented, so not be perfumes or anything. So we went, alhamdulillah, tonight over the violations of the ihram, the 9 of them, and inshallah next time inshallah we will go over the actual course of the Hajj. So far we have covered the rulings, we have covered the sites of the ihram, the places and the times of the ihram. We have covered entering the state of the ihram and the sunan and the recommended acts prior to, and the violations of the ihram afterward. We have not done anything in the Hajj course yet. So now, inshallah, starting tomorrow, inshallah, we will go directly into the course of the Hajj. Now entering Mecca and start doing the course of the Hajj. And inshallah, we're going to explain we're going to explain, inshallah, the 3 types of Hajj and how to do the first tahallul and how to do the second tahallul and all the procedures and all the rituals of Hajj, inshallah. That probably will take us more than one lecture, inshallah, before we conclude. And we're going to stop here, inshallah, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to benefit us from what we say and what we hear. And assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullah khairan.